Hello, everyone. Welcome to the last event of the 2023 BRIC Summit. It has been an intense couple of days, and it was really great. Those of you that got to go in person yesterday, it was wonderful to see your faces. It was very surreal, emotional. I think I cried like 4 times, like not because things were sad, but just because it was just like, oh my goodness. I'm very excited for the amount of people that have come today to everything. We've never had this much concurrent programming. And it was worth it. So it's very exciting. We really wanted to make sure that we always end the show with a way for you that may have not gotten your questions answered, or if there's like 250 people in a Zoom, sometimes it's scary to like raise your hand and ask a question. So we just really wanted to make sure that there was a space for you to kind of get your questions answered. If you are an educator or have education specific questions, there is a separate AMA happening just for educators. Maybe Melba, if you wanted to put that link in the chat, I would be very appreciative. Obviously you can hang out here, but we're not going to be specifically focusing on educational content in this particular panel. With that said, I'm Nicole Hendricks. I am the co-founder of the BRIC Foundation. I am a producer, and I am here to answer any questions about like either that freelance hustle life or anything nonprofit or partnerships or marketing or anything like that. And kicking it over to my partner, Al.
Hi, everyone. I'm Allison Mann, co-founder of the BRIC Foundation. I've been in animation for over 20 years. I've worked as an artist, creative recruiter, development, human, and now I'm a talent rep over at Fourth Wall Management. So I rep writers, directors, visual storytellers, and I've been doing that for the last year and a half. I'm also producing. So I've sold my first feature, getting that done, putting pitches together, taking them out for TV, film, and everything else in between. Have a project with Shay, represent Fernanda, and then Sam works with me, and they will all talk about their background. So I'm excited to be here for all the questions and the accessibility, and I'm excited for this talk. I'll kick it off to Sam next, since she's my next window over.
Hey everybody, my name is Sam. My pronouns are she, her, and I am an animation recruiter. I work with Allison at Fourth Wall Management, bringing my recruiting acumen to them and starting up a recruiting arm of their talent management company. Before that, I was working at Netflix Animation, and before that, I was at DreamWorks. So I've been in the animation industry since about 2015. I also teach. So I teach at Cal State Long Beach, the animation practicum course, which is basically how to get a job 101. And then I teach a social activism and animation course known as Animated Perspectives with Loyola Marymount University. So I'm here to answer all your questions about animation activism, and also what is it that recruiters are looking for, how to make that first step, how to be noticed, how to get your first job. And I'm going to pass it to Dina.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Sam. And thank you to Al and Nicole for just an amazing experience these past 2 days. And thank you to all of you for hanging out. I know it's late, and yeah, just all the gratitude. So I am a professor at San Francisco State. I teach television production. My background is broadcast news, and I've been at SF State for 20 years. I, for the past 10 years, have been running a statewide program called the Cal State Entertainment Alliance. I will put that link in the chat, but it's csuentertainment.com. And our mission is, along with most people here, to diversify the workforce in Hollywood from a practical sense. And so we have 23 campuses across the state. Not all of them get the love they deserve. There are some really hidden great programs, and we're all about eliminating barriers to access and opportunity. So we try to do that in a very practical sense. We offer free summer housing to students who get an internship in LA but can't afford to live in LA for 10 weeks in the summer. And we also offer low cost internship credit. We give grants to our programs to bring in guest speakers. So if you're interested in guest speaking on a campus, I'd love to connect. And if you're recruiting, I'd love to connect and help basically direct the talent pipeline, to you. Yeah, I'll stop there and pass it on to Fernanda.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, thanks so much for inviting me to this panel. I'm Fernanda. I'm an animation director, a writer, illustrator, and comic book artist from Chile. I'm in Chile right now. And I had mostly a very self-started career, self-learned career, and I produce short films from Latin America. I directed branded films, and I've mostly made a career of working with the limited resources that are available here in Latin America, which I think is kind of a strength. I've learned how to do what you can with what you have, and also, but I also had project in development with Netflix a couple of years ago, and I'm now making a graphic novel called Rise the Bar that it's going to be published at some point with Penguin over there in the US. So yeah, I'm here to answer any questions you might have about directing, the creative process, teaching shows, all that stuff. Yeah. Shay is next.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Allison and Nicole, for having me. I am a writer. My name is Shay Worthy. I use all pronouns. I've been writing for a little over a year now, writing in features and television, live action and animation. But prior to that, I was a executive working in animation, which is how I know Allison. Worked at Sony Animation for about 4 years. And prior to that, I worked in casting. I've worn lots of hats in this industry. And so I think I hopefully can be helpful just in demystifying any aspects of any of those hats that I've worn. I'm not not of the industry. I'm from New York. And I think that for a lot of people, it's about, how do you get your foot in the door? So I've gotten my foot in a few doors, and if I can be at all helpful, happy to help where I can.
So I'm going to start with a question. Allison Mann, let's say I'm a creator and I have a really great idea. How can I get my idea picked up by a studio or turned into reality?
I mean, I think Fernanda and Shay can also add to this because there's so many different avenues. And I think there's so much accessibility. Like, you don't have to have necessary representation, but you might have to figure out ways to build a brand or an IP that isn't in a traditional manner. So there's a traditional way, which is putting together a Bible, getting representation, getting it out and pitching it to the studios. There's that way. Then there is creating something on your own. So creating a comic or a web comic, something. A lot of my clients self-publish. They'll put stuff on YouTube, but just to build a brand. Like if you think of something like Cocomelon, which started on like YouTube and now is like a huge success. Like there's ways to build brands and IP with kind of limited budgets and just putting yourself out there and just making the things that you want to make and creating characters. So whether it's Instagram or people using TikTok or, you know, any of the other social media sites, I think is a good way to kind of build up like your stories that you want to tell. I think you can, if you're a writer, you can self-publish. I think there's just a lot of different avenues in that way. And I think sometimes people wait for validation to say that they can create, that they can be put out there in the world, that their story should be heard. And you shouldn't wait for a studio executive to give you your time in the spotlight. I think that if you have stories you want to tell, like, and you can't figure out like the connection to a major studio, like start creating, start building. I think the stories that resonate with you will resonate with others. And I think sometimes that fear of failure like holds us back from putting ourselves out there. So I would love to hear what Fernanda and Shay have to say, because both of their paths are same and different as creatives, and they went about it in different ways. They got agents and representation at different points in their careers. So Fernanda, do you want to talk about like what it's been like as a creative and putting your stuff out into the world?
Sure, yeah. So I guess the thing that became like my calling card and like my entry that gave me a little bit more of access to the industry was making a short film called Here's the Plan, and I put it on YouTube, and I sent it to festivals, but it was very long, so it didn't get into that many festivals. So I put it on YouTube, and it really found its audience on YouTube. It got like, I don't know, like 2-3 million views in the first period. Now it's been a couple of years, it has like 10 million views. But it wasn't like that. When I did that, I believed that it was like, oh, okay, I have a hit short film on YouTube. Hollywood is going to come knocking in my door. And it sadly didn't happen like that. I actually had to become more proactive in that sense. So I took the chance that I had like this calling card, this piece, to start going to markets, to animation markets like Annecy, like Kidscreen in the US, Pixelable in Mexico. And that was a chance for me that I wasn't in the studio system. I didn't have access to like, it wasn't like I was working in a studio and I could have access to the executives working there. So the markets were my chance. So I connected with several executives there. I got my first manager there. I also, on one of those markets, I met Allison, that then became my actual manager. So it was a very long process between that. And in one of those markets, obviously, one of the first advice I got for the short film was, the short film isn't going to, in my case, my short film wasn't going to become anything else. It wasn't going to become a feature. It wasn't going to become a series. So I had to already think about the next project. So if you make a short film, it could become something else. Like, I don't know, like Marcel with the shoes on, the A24 movie that was made recently. But you really have to have the next project. And in my case, it was a project called Raise the Bar, which was what I sold to Netflix afterwards. And I really think the short helped to be like, oh, this person can make something on their own. And it was like, okay, maybe we'll trust her with a development deal to make stuff. But that deal came, it didn't, they passed on the project, and I reformulated as a graphic novel. And I think that's the important point, to make this stuff. Like, you will also fall into the trap of just making pitches and development. And it's better to just make the stuff.
That is very, yeah, that's very real. I think, Nicole, can you just restate the question for me?
Yeah, just for any creators out there that are wanting to turn their ideas into reality, any advice you have?
Groovy. Thank you. I think that there are sort of two things that are very helpful in finding success in this industry from what I've witnessed as an executive and from what I've experienced as a writer, a working writer. And that is, as Fernanda is saying, like having the sample, having the proof that you've done something, a proof of concept, an idea that you're excited about, but then also having allies, having a community of people who can help you realize that, speak your names in rooms that you are not present in. And I think that's what's been very helpful for me in, I've only been, working as a writer for about 1.5 years, but I've stayed pretty booked and busy, knock on wood, because I have a community of people who've been have been very supportive of me. And part of that comes from the fact that I worked in the studio system for a while. So I got my first opportunity through Sony. I had a Sony mentor. It was an executive mentorship sort of partnership. And she knew that I was working on something in my free time, which is very difficult to do because when you're an exec, it's a kind of a 24/7 job. But she took a look at the thing that I'd written and she expressed interest in optioning that pilot. And that led to now, finding representation got a lot easier and people wanted to meet with me. And that has led to sort of this snowballing of sort of a lot of things kind of beautifully coming my way. And so I'm being proactive as well, but I think that the community aspect is really useful. And I think can help, figuring out the idea, shaping the idea on your own is important work. But I think to the question, actually getting it made is about having people that aren't just you sort of singing your praises and telling you about opportunities that might be about that specific project, might be about a project that should be a good fit for, might be about a job that can lead to the next thing. I think that probably for most people on this panel, for most people that I know, like the way that you get to where you are is never the way you think you're going to get there. And it really is just kind of saying yes to things and people advocating for you. So that I think is, to me, it's that partnership of actually doing the work by yourself and having the thing ready to go. And then also having people who are going to support you in getting that thing in front of the right people.
Thank
Can
you.
I jump in to answer the visa question?
Thank you, Tam.
So in case anyone missed it in the chat, Raquel asked, I have to deal with the issue of companies not wanting to sponsor work visas. Is there a way around that? Are talent and significant portfolios enough? Which is like a really common question. I hear it a lot. And so I did some research into immigration law when it comes to this to see what the answer is. And the fact of the matter is that legally, studios cannot sponsor visas for entry-level positions. In order to get a visa, it has to be based off of merit. So saying this person is so good at this thing that we couldn't possibly get somebody else. More importantly, we couldn't possibly get somebody who already lives here to do the job. We have to bring in this person from this other country. That's the bar that the studio has to prove to the government in order to sponsor your visa. So that's why you see so many internship and trainee programs, things like that, that say no international applications accepted. It's because our hands are legally tied. It's not that we don't want to help, it's that we can't because of immigration law. There are a couple workarounds for that. One being if you're located in Canada and Mexico, there's like a North American treaty that allows for more freely moving, excuse me, moving workers across borders. And then also students. So there are certain student visas that will allow you to work while you're here also studying, as long as you are studying what it is that the industry that you're working in. So those that would be like my biggest suggestion is to try coming over as a student, an animation student, and then start picking up freelance jobs and building up your connections there so that hopefully a big studio can can make the case that they should sponsor you. Otherwise, work locally in your own area and build up the skills, the acumen, the talent, so that when a studio looks at your work, they can make that justification to the government of like, this person is a uniquely skilled individual and we need them, and we can't find that here in the States.
That said, I know 2 human beings that have gotten the H-1B visa lottery. And I knew them before they got the lottery, so it's very odd that I would have met 2 people before the lottery. So maybe there's just more lottery spots than we've been led to believe. So please check out the H-1B. Also a lot of concept art studios are freelance. And so they won't give you a visa, but you can get those connections and you can get that portfolio, because Sam's right. Nobody's going to sponsor an entry-level person, but if you have those relationships and that portfolio and that skill set and understand how to work in that environment, those are all things that make you more competitive.
I also think like we're in a time right now where, yes, being in-house again might be the ideal, but there is a lot of freelance opportunities. So there's like ways to build up your portfolio and your brand, and still get opportunities. I have clients all around the world, not here just in the States, and they get opportunities in the States doing freelance design work. So don't rule out opportunities. Like it just might not be like a full time, but it's still a way to build everything up.
I do want to address the portfolio set question. For portfolio reviews, will we hear back from individual studios and will we hear back from everyone? So how that works is everybody that signs up and you check which studio you want, we give that list to the studios, and several studios will continue to meet with people over the next 3 months. We have no control, we have no visibility. I harass for data every once in a while because I love data. So I do know that people do get hired from them. I think to date, we've had about 10 to 12 hires, which isn't like massive, but it's still like people are hiring. So if you have not gotten any email from any studio by like end of March, Allison and I will give you a portfolio review. We can figure it out what's going on. So we can't guarantee that a studio will look at you, but we absolutely can.
I'm trying to catch up with the question for a portfolio review.
I think there's a question for Shay.
Yeah, from Sam McKim. Kind of going off what Shay mentioned, how do you find the time, energy to work on projects on your own?
I laughed when I read that question because it is so hard. What I did was 2 things. I started a writers group, and that helped me because I'm good. Peer pressure helps me do things, and created really realistic goals for myself. So it wasn't like I'm going to write a script in a month. It was very like, 5 pages this week or whatever it was, and that was very helpful. I also, and I don't know that I encourage this or don't encourage this, that year when I was thinking about making the transition, took all my vacation days and put them up against the holidays and really kind of wrote the pilot that sort of launched everything in that span of time when I could just block everything out. And it was during the height of COVID. I'd flown back to New York to see my family. I was quarantining before seeing them. I was staying at a friend's apartment by myself. And so that was very helpful. And not everyone has that, sort of luxury of no one was talking to me. And also we were in a lockdown. Not that that's a luxury. And so that's sort of how I got things done, but it's not easy. I think that, the discipline is difficult, but I think, again, giving yourself realistic goals is helpful, and figuring out how you like to work. That's something that I've actually discovered more on the other side of things, but discovering that I actually really like working in the mornings. And I didn't know that about myself. But that's really useful for me to know. Also, I used to be a person who was like, I'm going to set aside, 2 hours to write. And I'm going to do that, this number of times a week. And I actually really don't like that. I much prefer I'm going to write 5 pages on Saturday, because I can hit that sometimes in 30 minutes if it's dialogue, sometimes not. And I don't punish myself for having 4 hours and writing 1 page. And so I think just giving yourself a little freedom to figure out what those milestones can be, but it's hard. I feel for you. You can do it. But it's about, I think, just figuring out how you like to work. And one of the best pieces of advice that I've gotten is like worrying less about time management and more energy management. So if you wake up energized and you care most about your writing career, then write in the morning when you're giving your best energy to your writing, and then give the rest of your energy to work. If you are energized on the weekends and you want to do all of your writing on the weekends, then do that. But that's been like sort of very transformative in how I sort of manage my time and energy.
Dina, for all of our college kids here and people that maybe have just graduated, like what advice do you have for them for like entering into the real world and kind of going out on all these interviews?
Well, one of the things that always surprises me is that students don't take full advantage of the resources that their tuition is paying for, and that includes career services. So every campus does have a career service office. Not all of them are created equal, not all of them are kick-ass, but at minimum, I know that Cal State campuses, and I can speak for those campuses, they have contracts with technology vendors that can help with very practical skills. For example, there's a software called Big Interview. And what it does is you can look it up. I'll try to track it down and put it in the link. It helps you do practice interviews. So you could just practice your interview style. A lot of students post-pandemic find it really awkward to be in person. It's awkward. And what if you do get called in, or what if you do have to be on the phone? Like, is your phone game good? Like a lot of students also prefer nonverbal communication, like texting, or being on Discord, so sort of more text-based stuff, but you actually have to meet people. And a lot of creatives are just shy and introverted and don't enjoy that. I get it, but you've got to practice. You've got to go to your career center. And then I think most important of all is go to your favorite professor's office hours. That's what they're there for. I can't tell you how many hours I've spent alone in my office, just waiting for someone to show up. Don't be shy to reach out. Professors are also really great resources for referrals. So somebody like myself and many other faculty have been teaching for a long time. We have connections to a deep alumni database as well, like on LinkedIn. If you make sure to connect with your professors, you're also unlocking an alumni network of people that went to your school, or maybe they went to another Cal State school and they're willing to look at you. We get requests all the time, can you find us somebody who can do XYZ? And sometimes it's on very short notice. Hey, there's a production in Sonoma, it's 3 days, it's $75 a day. Like, do you have someone like now, next weekend? So also be very open to doing things for free. I know that's tough, especially for Cal State students. I get it. And I teach in San Francisco. They're living in RVs and working 4 jobs. Trust me, I understand how hard it is and what a luxury it is to just be like, oh, go volunteer, go work for free. It doesn't work like that for everybody. But if you are willing to set aside the time, it can make all the difference in the world. So we also have a bunch of career resources on our site that I will put in the chat, and then I'm happy to take any specific questions. You're welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'll make the time, or I'm going to find someone who will make the time, to give you some very specific guidance.
I think that one of the most important piece of advice that I've got about this point in the process of your lives is the informational interview. Like it has opened many a door to me, this concept of the informational interview, which I hope I'm not repeating information that you already know, but just quickly, an informational interview is when you reach out to someone, maybe cold, maybe they went to your high school or college, maybe you are connected, and you say in a sort of brief email, hey, here's how I came upon your information. And if you're a fan of them, something like a sentence about why you're excited about them, what you want to do, and would you be willing to do a 15-minute phone call with me? I have maybe some questions about the industry. I want to hear about how you got into the industry, any pieces of advice that you have. The big sort of note about this request is that you are not asking for a job. You are just asking to, it's now become, a joke, but pick someone's brain. And so many of those informational interviews that I've reached out to so many people through them, many people, a lot of people will say yes. Some people just won't respond, which is fine. They're busy. And it is not uncommon for them to have led to either an opportunity in a very specific way or me meeting someone else who is important to me in my career or my growth. I've had people reach out to me for informational interviews and I have not gotten them jobs directly, but I've connected them to people who've gotten them jobs. Allison's nodding because I handed someone off to her a couple of years ago who ended up getting a job. It's really about, again, because so much of this industry is about relationships and community, you're sitting down in front of someone and showing them that you're smart and that you're nice to talk to. And once I see that, I'm like, oh, great. If I hear someone needs a job and that's a great entry-level job for you, I want to help you. That actually looks good on me that I helped that person fill that role. And so I just highly recommend that. I recommend following up with people afterwards. When I was an intern at CAA, they said quarterly. I do it basically once a year. I try to follow up with people. Hey, here's what I'm up to now. What are you up to? But it really, I can't say enough positive things about that. And especially at this age, Dina, tell me if I'm wrong. I feel like I'm reaching the age where I feel weird about reaching out for an informational interview, but I feel like in your early 20s, people want to help. They want to make your path easier than theirs were, especially if you're relating about something, whether it's where you're from or your identity or anything. So that's my biggest piece of advice to all of you.
Shay, will you talk about your philosophy on thank you cards? Because it really made an impact on me.
Yeah. Another piece of advice they gave us at CAA was to always write a thank you card after you meet with anybody, after you interview. Ideally, that is a physical card, but we no longer live in a world where these conversations are always physical. So whenever I'd go in for an interview, I would bring a blank thank you card with me. I would interview with that person, remember something about that conversation that stood out to me, something that I want to add, something that just excited me, made me laugh. I will leave the interview. In the waiting room, I will write a thank you card and I will hand it to security to hand it to that person. And I have a very good batting average with interviews. I've only not gotten one job that I've interviewed for. And I think that's part of it. So even now that we're in a virtual world, I send an email. People always appreciate it. The one piece of advice that I will give on top of that is if you are a person who struggles with grammar, spelling, any of that stuff, have someone proofread it. Because I experienced once a person writing a thank you card that hurt their chances of getting a job because it was very poorly written. But other than that, I really think that it's a great thing. And it's just it gets people excited about you. Even if it's not that job, it's something else. So I'm a big advocate for the thank you card.
I love that. And I don't know about you, Sam, but there's been a big drop off on thank yous. I do not get after a meeting or anything, it's like it was, I don't know. It's just a different mentality all of a sudden. So now if I when I was a recruiter, if I got the one person who gave me a thank you card is the person I would send through. There was literally separating people from the pack. Because if everybody has a very similar skill set, they interview very similarly. It's who is really wants it and who can call back to the reason why they want it. So I think it's in this market, going above and beyond and really leading with curiosity and showing that you want it. And even if you don't get it, you thank the person for the opportunity and you then follow up. I did a games career panel earlier, and one of the people that was talking, they interviewed, I think they applied for 300 positions, were finalists in interviews 15 times, 15 times. And then finally landed a job. This was like a career pivot thing. But like the point is like they stayed true to themselves. They stayed like, even if it was demoralizing, kept going. But I did the thank you card. I do think it makes a difference.
Absolutely.
You know, bouncing off of that, you said going above and beyond, and that definitely helps. But what I have noticed is like doing the bare minimum will actually get you to stand out, because so many people are too afraid to send that email. So I do talks like this, and go to like schools and do like guest lectures and things like that. Like I'm all over the place, and I always am like, here's my email, hit me up. And when you do, like, I'll have an informational and I will do my best to help you. And maybe 2 to 3% of the people that I give that information to actually follow up. And that's not an exaggeration, like literally 2 to 3% of the hundreds of people that I've given my contact information to have followed up. And those people, those are the ones that I got jobs. So don't be afraid to follow up. Don't be afraid to raise your hand and ask for help. The animation industry in particular is a very friendly one. And so we all want to help you, but we don't know if you don't ask. We can't help you if you don't raise your hand. So
I think it's about, yeah.
I was just finishing up, be one of the 3%.
Yeah. And I think it goes to being your own CEO too. Like, see it, want it, go for it. You know, and I think sometimes, like even on the management side, it's like if I'm having to chase my clients, I'm like, do you want it? You know what I mean? Like, it's the same thing. You have to be like persistent. You have to be like, I've seen this thing. I'm doing the research. Like, you have to be on top of it because it's such a competitive industry. And that 4%, 3%, whatever it is, Sam, that you said, like it still relays in the representation side too. It's the same thing.
But also really quickly, I think, agree to all of that. I experienced a lot of that as well. I think just to speak, this is a lot of creatives here, but speaking, so we're anxious girlies. Like, I think that's just like, and I think that for some reason, like the email, I can't even describe why it feels like, am I bothering them? I don't know. How long should the email be? Should it be short? How do I sign off? Like, all of these things can lead to like, you just like paralysis. And I think, you know, something that's been very helpful to me is just like lowering the stakes and thinking like, what is the worst case scenario? Like, the worst case scenario is they don't respond, which is fine. Like, that is like, it's fine. And they didn't respond because you wrote a bad email. They didn't respond because they don't like you. They didn't respond because they are busy and they have 100 emails, but like, good on you. And like, really, again, like, pat yourself on the back for sending 1 email, then send 3, then send 6. Like, if you have to set aside time on a Saturday and just send them all, like, I fully understand how, especially during the pandemic, my email has become a place of anxiety for me sometimes. And I think figuring out my favorite thing to do is schedule send. And I don't know what it is, but I write the email and I'm like, I'm too stressed to send it right now. Don't know why, but I'm too stressed to send it right now. I'm going to schedule it to go out in an hour. And if I have some amazing inspired thought of like a great sign off sentence in that hour, I'll cancel it, add the sentence and hit send. And if I don't, the email will go off and that will be useful. And it's like a thing you can do on Gmail. It's helped me. I don't know why I'm this way. I don't know why so many creatives are this way. But I think, again, like, just lower the stakes. It's people want to help you, and just don't get in your own way, especially at that level.
The best email like life hack I have is make sure that you're asking a question, and like a clear and direct question, not an open-ended question, not a bunch of half sentences that is like explaining your situation. Because when I receive that, I look at it and I'm like, well, I don't know what this person wants from me. And now I have the anxiety. You've like passed the anxiety over to me. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to say or what I do. And I just don't do anything. But if you come to me with a very specific question of like, hey, I want to get better at this thing, do you have any suggestions or resources for me? It's a lot easier to get that conversation rolling rather than just like, I want to be an artist, can you help me? And I'm like, sure. So that's the best life hack. Have a specific question and you'll get answers way more often.
I will not respond to your email without a specific question. I completely feel that because I am also a very anxious human. I'm like, I don't know what to do with that. I want to address a question in the chat from Selena, talking about if you're freelancing and you feel like a studio or a client is taking advantage of you and you're not being fairly compensated for your work. I hope that hasn't happened to you. I think that's happened to most of us, I think, at least once, right? Because you need to have that happen, I think, once for you to realize I never want that to happen again. I think taking on any client or any project, you should know what you're getting out of that. I'm taking this client on, even though because it's a slightly lower rate, because I want to get more into that industry, or I like the type of projects they work on, and maybe they'll have me be on a bigger one, or I want to work with this particular person. Or if it's just like a job for money, like don't accept less than. And so I think it's just more, if you are accepting not being fairly compensated, making sure that you're getting a bigger picture goal out of it, that it is your choice, that you're having the power in that. If not, it's okay to walk away. It's okay to say no, like you're not going to be blacklisted because you turned down a thing, unless you like burn it down or like, let me tell you why I'm walking away from this thing. Earlier, I repeatedly say to people, that you need to be kind in this industry. And that's really what the root of like the reaching out to people and sending nice emails and follow-ups. But like being kind while setting boundaries is a really important skill to, do in your every aspect of your life, but definitely while freelancing. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I was going to say that the thing about boundaries, it's really important. And that early in my career, when I've been in that situation where I've been offered like a low payment, or like I get asked more stuff that I actually that was actually agreed on. There could be like a psychological aspect of being like, oh no, like I'm being taken advantage of. They see me as weak, or they don't respect me, or like, oh no, like it's very easy to get into like a helpless situation. Like you feel very helpless. But if you practice setting boundaries, you can actually be like, if they are like, oh, can you stay late, or can you make more designs, like, oh, just a couple of sketches, like stuff like that, you can say like, oh, that wasn't like in our initial contract, and if you want, we could do that for an extra blah blah blah, that will, or like, maybe I can do this, but then maybe I will have less time for this. You can negotiate those things. You can set you can say no and walk away, or they walk away. Like the thing is that I think that oh, sorry, forget the words. But I think that it's not personal. Like it took me a while to stop feeling that those kind of things are personal. Like we live under capitalism, and like companies are probably going to always try to take advantage of you, and like that's just life. So maybe it's like, okay, they're taking advantage of everyone, so I'm not going to take it personal, and that makes it easier to put boundaries, because it's not like you are letting down anyone, it's just life. So that's my advice.
On TikTok, there's like a whole series of like corporate speak of like polite boundary setting and polite and I think that like just getting comfortable practicing professional verbiage, because I think we're moving that emotion out of it, and just kind of practicing some polite and professional no's can also help, just so you you're aware of them, you've thought about them and can bust them out whenever. And then high school, there was an international high school camp internship. So CalArts has a really cool one if that's within your budget range. You know, there's events like Lightbox Expo that I absolutely recommend. I love Lightbox Expo, volunteering at or attending if you can. THU is now every other year, but they have volunteers if you're in Europe, it's easier for you to access. There's PAX, there's SIGGRAPH, just really trying to go to these conferences wherever they are in your region to do that networking and to kind of get yourself in front of humans. Allison,
Yeah,
man, anything else? Oh, sorry, Sam, yes.
Oh, yeah, just to add to the networking thing, the animation community rolls deep in social media. So you don't actually have to be face-to-face in person to be an effective networker. Follow all of your favorite creators, follow the careers accounts for your favorite studios, follow your peers, the people that you've met here, and just kind of start those conversations and make friends, be friendly. Use social media as you would on a personal account, but now you're doing it on an animation account, and it's like for the animation industry, and you're gonna, even without realize it, make so many organic connections with people that you know, you see their posts all the time and you're always like, oh my God, I love this art, you know, like, oh, I love that drawing, or like, and you know, just engagement, and that really can build up. So Instagram, TikTok, Twitter is kind of dying because Elon, but like Twitter for now, and absolutely Discord. Get on Discord. There are so many different Discord communities that are animation based, animation focused, where you can really get in there and start creating community. And then that community, without you realizing it, will start to work for you. And you never have to step foot in front of anybody.
Well, we are at time. There's some more questions about freelance rates and what have you. That really depends on your region. Are you union? Are you not union? Luckily, there's a lot of things accessible on Google. And again, TikTok has really great ungate-kept information about money. But with that, thank you all for being a part of the summit. Cheers. Thank you all, Shay, Fernanda, Sam, Dina, our wonderful ASL interpreters have been with us for the past 2 days. Just thank you for being a part and hope to see y'all next year.